continuing in the theme of last Torah, that we said about how Hashem gave instructions to Moshe Rabbeinu how to position over the new position, the leadership, to Yoshua, to Joshua. So after the instructions, then it says that Moshe did as Hashem told him. Vayas Moshe Chesed Tzivah Hashem. He took Yoshua. He stood him before Elazar the Kohen and before the entire assembly. And then what happened then? He leaned his hands upon him and commanded him as Hashem had spoken through Moshe. So Rashi explains on the idea of Moshe putting his hands on Yoshua. Rashi says, "V'ayin yofa," generously. Yosef mimash shenitztava. He did more than he was commanded. Shekadosh Baruch Hu omer lo, God told him, "V'samachta shatcha alav," lean your hands using the signal hand, yatcha, your hand. V'hu asa b'shtei yadav, but he did it with both hands. V'asahu, they made Yoshua. Now this is what we want to speak about today. Kechli molei v'gadosh, like a vessel which is full and brimming over. Umilu chachmaso, filled him with wisdom, v'ayin yofa, generously. So the generously before wasn't necessarily only going on putting of the hands. God told him one hand and he did two hands, but it also was referring to the fact that he was generous with him filling him over with wisdom. What does that mean? What is Rashi actually saying? And what's this idea of making him a full and a heaping container? What does that mean? Chaim Kanievsky, Shlita, B'nai Brak, explains Rashi's comment based on a Vilna Gaon. The Dubno Maggid once asked him, I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but the question was, how can a tzaddik cause his own fear of heaven to positively influence those around him? He could be the biggest tzaddik in the world, but how does it work that his tzidkus can affect the people around him? So the Vilna Gaon answered as follows. In this case, I guess, usually the Dubno Maggid is giving the mashal. In this case, the Vilna Gaon gave the mashal. The Vilna Gaon says, let's say you have a large container, and then you surround it with small containers. So how are you going to get the water or whatever you're going to fill from the large container to go into the small containers if you pour it until it overflows? If you only pour a finite amount of water into the large container, it can be as large as you want. It can be as small as you want. But if you don't fill it up until it keeps on overflowing, you can have as many small containers around it. Nothing's going to go into it. It has to be able to be a kosh yain mullet. It has to be full, like we say by Abdullah, and heaping and cup runneth over, as the expression goes. That was the Vilna Gaon. So you have to keep on pouring it enough till it overflows, and then there will be enough content to fill the small containers as well. But if the large container is not filled, it won't overflow into the small container. That was what the Vilna Gaon said. There's a pasuk in Koheles which says as follows: if the clouds are filled, then they will pour down rain on the earth. The Medrash says this is referring to Talmid Chachamim. What's the pasuk talking about? What's the Medrash talking about? So the Chaim Kanievsky Shlita says, according to this Vilna Gaon, that's what's going on over here. And that's also what Rashi, this explanation, which I'm going to say now, is going to explain what Rashi was saying before about Yoshua, that he was that Moshe made him a full and heaping container. That Moshe installed in Yoshua the ability to observe Torah and fear of heaven to the point that he could overflow and influence the nation. So the same thing too. Moshe was so full of Torah, Yerushalayim, and Avodah that he was able to give it over to Yeshua, and then Yeshua will be able to give it over to the rest of the people. So that's what Rashi meant. That Moshe made Yeshua this full and heaping container. He he was so full of Torah, Yerushalayim, that he was able to influence Yeshua, and then Yeshua was able to influence the rest of the people. And that's shot in the pasuk in Koheles with the Medrash. That the pasuk is saying that if the clouds are filled, then they will pour down rain. If the clouds aren't filled, there's no rain to pour down. Rain comes from the clouds. If there's no rain in the clouds, we're not going to get any rain. Or maybe if there's just a small amount, it's going to stay in the clouds. It's only when it's overflowing that we get rain. So the Medrash, like I said before, that was the Talmidei Chachamim. What does Torah have to do with this? The Talmidei Chachamim are influenced by the previous Talmidei Chachamim. If they are overflowing with Torah and Avodah and Gemilas Chasodim, then they're able to influence the next generation. Let's learn from this to be full of Torah and Avodah, and Shabbat Shalom.